Hey everybody, it's Jackie from Vegan Yack Attack, and I'm back with a brand new video and recipe for you. Happy day. Today I'm excited because I'm making a recipe that I whipped up last week actually that was so good. I made a couple of tweaks and now I'm sharing it with y'all because I asked everyone on Instagram if they wanted cabbage roll soup and they said yes. Now we're having it. This soup is super easy, no pun, but it comes together in like 15-20 minutes. You can let it simmer for longer at the end if you have a little bit of time, and that is with the rice that's cooked if you decide to add it. I'm adding it to mine. I like the body that it gives the soup. We're also using some vegan ground meat, if you will, but otherwise these ingredients are very easy to find and it is really just going to come together really quickly. So I guess we can get into it. To go over the other ingredients, we have some high temp cooking oil. Right here I have some organic canola oil. I also have vegetable broth, a 28-ounce can of diced tomatoes, and then a 15-ounce can of tomato sauce, half of a yellow onion, a pretty large one that's been diced, and then a cup and a half of cooked rice. You can use whatever you want, maybe like a medium grain white rice. I have short grain brown rice here. Doesn't really take that long to cook. And then in terms of spices and stuff, you don't really need a whole lot because with cabbage rolls or guamkis, however you know them, there's not a ton of seasoning added into it. So I just have some salt, crushed red pepper, and then a little oregano. Plus we're gonna get some flavor from this vegetable broth. So the first thing that we're doing is adding about a tablespoon of this cooking oil, and we want that to get hot. You'll be able to tell when the pan is hot because the oil will move pretty freely inside of it. Hopefully you can see some of that. And honestly, I'm surprised this thing heated up as quickly as it has, using another vintage cooking situation, kind of like the griddle for the French toast I made a couple weeks back. So now we're going to add in the yellow onion. Ooh, sizzle. That's nice. Love sauteed onion. I'm gonna switch this around here. And we want to saute this for about 2 to 3 minutes over that medium heat. Just enough to get it a little softened, because then I want to add some of the vegan ground meat into this and get some of the flavor into the onion. Gonna let that sit a little bit. Stir again, we'll wait another minute or so, and then I'll add some of this in, chunk it in. Delicious. Oh, did I also forget to mention that we have half of a large cabbage? It's roughly about a pound of cabbage. So if you're at the store and you're not sure what size to get, just wait there, maybe a small or large one. You can save half of the cabbage for slaw, for tacos, or anything else like that. I just cut it into strips, a little smaller, because it'll cook down a bit once we start sauteing it with everything else. All right, I'm going to add some of this vegan ground. You want 16 ounces. There's a lot of brands that make this at this point, or this style of like ground beef for vegans. So whatever one you prefer. Some I know are gluten-free, some are soy-free, some are totally allergy-friendly. So whatever you can find near you works great. If you don't like the idea of using a meat substitute, then you can also use a drained can of lentils and add that in for that kind of meaty ground flavor. You could probably add a little bit of vegan Worcestershire sauce into it to give it a little bit more umami. So with this, I'm just going to chunk it in instead of dumping the whole thing in here. And I will kind of cut it apart a little bit as well as it's in here sauteing with the onions, but not too much, because what I found that I really enjoyed when I was eating this soup is that they were kind of like little meatballs in a way in it, and it was really delicious, and texturally it was really nice. All right, there we go. Get this ugly plate out of here. So now I'm gonna chunk this up a little bit. Maybe like that size is nice. And I like sauteing this with the onions because it starts heating it up and there's a little fat in it that breaks down. And it cooks the onions really nicely. It browns the vegan meat really nicely. Well, this one has quite a bit of paprika and beet juice in it that colors it, so it's not going to turn that traditional brown color once it's cooked through. It'll be like a little orange with some browning edges. Okay, here we go. And we'll let this cook just another minute or two, get a little hotter. I feel like I might need to turn this up just a tad. Get it sizzling, get it sauteing until the onions are pretty clear at that point. All right, stirring this up a bit. This meat was pretty cool when I put it in here, so I'm waiting for the heat to come back up in the pot. If you're using a gas stove, this will definitely take less time. I don't miss that about electric burners, I will say that. Now that this has firmed up a little bit, which is usually how you can tell that it's cooking throughout, is that instead of being kind of soft and mushy, it starts getting a little bit firm because the liquid is being cooked out of it. So this is still needs some browning, but before it's done being cooked, I want to add in this cabbage and get this cooked down quite a bit. Not super, super soft. We still want a little texture in this, but enough to where it's not raw, for sure. I might need to actually close the lid on this to steam this down a little bit since I have added way more cabbage. So I'll cook that with the lid on for a couple more minutes, just get that cooked down and then start stirring everything together. I almost forgot to add that if you want to draw some of the liquid out of cabbage, so the water, you want to give it a little sprinkle of salt and then stir that in. That way it wilts a little bit quicker and we can saute it a little bit faster. And stir that in and then cover this back up. All right, this cabbage is cooking down quite a bit. You see it's not this heaping pile in here anymore. So I'm gonna stir it a little bit more, cook it for a couple more minutes. I want it to be a little clearer than this, but like I said, not too soft. Okay, this is looking pretty solid. You can see, ooh, it's getting nice and translucent. So now what we're going to do is add the spices. I'm just gonna do a little bit of crushed red pepper, so like a 1/4 teaspoon. Do it to taste. This recipe serves about 6, so if you want a little bit more pepper than that, go for it. And then I'm gonna do about a 1/4 teaspoon of oregano. I don't want it too oregano-y, then you start getting this like spaghetti pizza sauce vibe kind of thing. I'm not really going for that. And now we will add in the tomato sauce. If you want to adjust the sodium levels to your preferences, start with low or no sodium tomato sauce and then just season as you're going. And then that 28-ounce can of diced tomatoes. So again, I was trying to keep this recipe pretty accessible and pantry friendly. Use up those tomatoes for something other than pasta sauce. Stir this in. Ooh, smells delicious. And once that's all combined, going to add in, give this a little stir, 3 cups of vegetable broth, or kind of like however you want the texture to be. So maybe you just want to add 2 cups of vegetable broth because you want it a little bit more like a stew. Maybe you want to add 4 cups because you do want it more soupy and loose. You be the judge. And this one, well, it looks pretty soupy right now. Because I'm going to add in the rice, I might actually add in another cup of vegetable broth or just water. If you don't want to pile in more sodium or different flavors, just add another cup of water. Oh, this looks so good. Oh my goodness. Stir that up. And then I'm going to add in this rice. I have about 1.5 cups here, but you can do whatever you want. Just know that some of the rice will soak up, or the rice will soak up some of the liquid that's in here. Even though it's already cooked, it's still gonna get pretty thick. So that's why I'm going to grab a cup of water. Oh my God, this looks so good and it smells so good. I guess I should have started with this, but I'm half Polish, so cabbage rolls are something that I love. It's something my grandmother used to make for us when we would go visit her in Michigan. And I love this because it's a little easier than making a cabbage roll. You don't have to steam the cabbage first, then assemble and bake and wait. While I do love that, and I love doing that for the holidays, this cabbage roll soup is kind of a nice way to enjoy those same flavors and textures with it being a quick weeknight meal. Ooh, that looks so good. All right, I'm gonna grab that water, add the water in, and you want to bring this back up to a simmer over that medium heat. We're just holding medium heat the whole time here. Bring it to a simmer and simmer for probably 5 minutes. Like I said, if at the beginning, if you have a little bit more time, 10 minutes is nice to really meld some of those flavors, like the fats from the vegan grounds. It just is so nice in this soup. And then after it simmers for a bit, we can salt to taste if it's needed. Cover this up. All right, I think this is done simmering. Put this over here. I brought out some sourdough focaccia that I made the other day. It has some olives in it. So good, and I enjoyed eating it with the last batch of soup I had. So I thought I'd bring it out for this one as well. Now, this has been simmering for a little bit. Let's give it a taste. Oh, that looks so good. Yum. Love this. Okay. Give it a little taste. I don't think that it needs any more salt. I feel like with that cabbage being salted and the veggie broth and the tomato sauce, it is pretty well salty, like just the perfect amount. But of course, Depending on what products you're using, that could change, definitely. So we taste as we go while we're cooking to make sure that we can get the best product at the end. I'm gonna go ahead and try not to make a huge mess, spooning this up. I wanna try it with that focaccia, see how that is together. I am making a mess. It is what it is, I suppose. All right. You see how good that looks? And then because this makes such a big portion, like I said, probably 6 servings in this, depending on who you are, what your appetite is like. I'm gonna get rid of this dirty bowl. It could be more or less, but 6 portions, this soup freezes really well. So if you just wanna wait for it to cool and then put it in some jars or freezer safe containers, stow it away for a few months, and then you can defrost it in the refrigerator the night before you want to eat it, and it reheats wonderfully. So now, let's eat this. A little bit of that bread dunked in. Ooh! Mmm. Mmm. That is so good. And you get these bites where here's a chunk of tomato, here's a chunk of that vegan meat, here's some cabbage and some rice. We got all these textures in this soup, but it still is not super heavy. Mmm. Ah, so good. I feel like my grandmother, if she was still alive, I think she'd be into this for sure. I don't want to assume too much, but I think so. I think she'd be into it. All right, wow. I can't wait to eat the rest of that. If y'all enjoyed this video, enjoyed this recipe, please subscribe and give me a like. And if you end up making this recipe in the future at some point, of course, let me know. I love to hear your feedback, and I hope you really enjoy it. I'll see you guys next time.